agar this was a police station, then I'm 42 years old. I'm a Tamilian, but I'm actually a Maharashtrian, born and brought up in Pune, and a writer. I can't think of anything more to say about myself. See, basically, I might be going all over the place on this, but my original passion was actually drawing, sketching. So when I was a kid, that's what I thought I was really into. One point kind of went out. At the age of 12 or so, I started writing. I used to send stories to magazines left, right, center. So I got published in, I don't know if you won't know of these magazines, Science Today, 2001, Mirror. There was a whole lot of magazines back in the 80s. When I was say 14, 15, which was 83, 84, 85, there were a whole lot of magazines which actually used these kind of fiction. So we used to write a lot of stories. I used to write stories and send it to newspapers, to magazines, and try and get them sold. A few sold, got damn delighted. I said, "Shit, this is what I want to do." But yeah, when you're a Tamilian type character, you know, a Tamilian Brahmin, middle class, Pune, तो options क्या होते हैं कि आप doctor बनो, या आप lawyer, आप chartered accountant बनो, या इस type के options होते हैं. Writer back in the 80s was not something which anybody thought was a deadly option. So got into computer science. वो भी थोड़ा एक joke था because there was an entrance exam. I had actually come to Bombay to give the JJ का entrance exam. And my dad called me and said कि यार, he didn't say यार, but he said चलो भाई, there's a entrance exam for a computer science thing. मैंने कहा ठीक है, करना तो है नहीं, लेकिन I'll come and I'll do it. It was a multiple choice thing. तो खुन्नस में I just arbitrarily ticked off anything कि हाँ. तो 5 मिनट के अंदर sheer random I just ticked off anything and I came off. I was I think 8th or 10th in the whole damn thing. So मैं थोड़ा confused हो गया. So I told my father कि look dad, I actually just joked. I didn't even look at one question. I randomly ticked. So he laughed and said maybe this is what you're destined to do. So I did it because it seemed like a career, it seemed like life, but my heart wasn't in it. Because I used to look around me in the class and they're like, say it's a class of 30 students, 29 guys are passionately listening to the guy and interested. And I am one guy thinking, this is a joke, this will end. Yeah, this is not real life. And suddenly I realized this is real life. The whole of your life you've got to proceed with this. And at that point you realize this is not what I want to do. At this point, I had sent a story to a magazine called Debonair. Okay, which that time was being headed by a great poet called Adil Jasavla. So Adil Jasavla sent me a lovely letter, very encouraging, very, very superb letter. I was so motivated, I left everything, I left Pune and everything and I came to Bombay. Ki sir, मैं आ गया हूँ, आपका letter. He said, भैया ये तो it's a rejection letter. I said, क्या? And I read the letter and I realized that over 2 pages, politely he was telling me कि no, you're not, this is not what you have to do. But I've already left everything and come, यहाँ आ गया हूँ. So he said, ठीक है भाई. So I said, ठीक है, थोड़ा journalism करते हैं. So through that I got into journalism. My dream at that point actually had been to write a book. So I got into journalism. I worked briefly with, I did some stringership for Midday, for all these things. And I wound up joining a magazine called Gentleman. I worked there for 4 or 5 years. That was great fun. I really learned a lot because I used to be, I still am, a very introverted, nervous, shy, stuttering sort of character. The moment you're a journalist, you're thrown into the line of fire. You have to go to a cop station and ask a cop, did you beat that guy? Now this, thoda sa, it takes a bit of balls. It makes you a bit more confident. You have to ask people rude questions. So gradually, it's uncomfortable, but it helps you get over all your reservations or whatever and stuff like that. So 4, 5, 6 years or 5 years in journalism really helped me. I had this notion, I had a feeling that my field was dying. In the sense, the kind of stuff I was going to write, I felt it was going to become vestigial. Ki 2-3 saal baad this won't exist. At this point, I joined UTV. I joined in a completely different department, a department called In-Flight. But in that 6 months I was there, I spent 6-8 months I was there. I spent 2 months in the editing and I learned how to edit. I spent 2-3 months with the camera, I spent 2-3 months doing production, I basically used it became a free paid film course for me, which I was really glad for, because I got to see every aspect of the business in terms of how you, like behind the camera, what happens. At the end of that 6-8 months, I was pretty confident. Now, if I go out there as a writer, I'll be able to manage. After this, I called up Kundan Shah, who I didn't know, and one of the few people I really respected. I thought he has a fantastic sense of writing, so I wanted to train under him. Kundan is very sweet. You can just walk up to him and say, and he doesn't say no to anybody. So he said, "Chalo bhai, aa jao." So I was assisting, or I was hanging around. I was there for a long time. I learnt learnt a lot about the rules of real writing from Kundan. Then I met Anju. Then much later, I had done a pilot for a friend of mine. I was obviously trying to write all the time. That time pilots ka bahut everybody was doing pilots and stuff like that. So I written a pilot for a friend of mine. The pilot never got made, but strangely enough, Anjum at BITV, that time there was a channel called BITV which didn't unfortunately take off. Saw the pilot, he liked my writing. He introduced me to, he said, would you like to write something else in the genre for somebody else? I said, sure, great. Who? And he said, BP Singh. So I said, yeah, BP Singh. I didn't know much about television. Then I came home, my brother's like my encyclopedia for me. So I came and asked Sriram ki, yeah, BP Singh, he said, he's superb. He's superb. He said, you've seen Action Nation. I said, yeah, I've seen Action Nation. I'm Maharashtrian, like I said, I speak Marathi. I didn't know he had made it. So he said, whatever there is to learn, you will learn from this guy. He's great. I said, chalo bhai. I came and met Mr. Singh. Initially, he was wary of me and unsure ki main kar paunga ki nahi. But that time he was doing the show called Art. So he said, will you write it? And I had the typical arrogance of a 20-year-old, 21, 22-year-old. So of course, he said, har hafte ek story likhna padega. I said, haan, hoga na mere se. He was a bit wary of me and stuff like that. But eventually, we really hit it off. I wrote Art and later CID. We did the show called CID. Which I did for, I think, 8 years, something like that. 7, 8 years. That's how I became a writer. When I worked with Kundan, he taught me about organic writing. See, I had this very brash approach. I still am a guy who's strong on plot. I'm very good at plot. I'm not necessarily that strong with character. So, Kundan used to say, we'll work on this. And I used to write, everything is in place. All, you're looking for your plot points and act structure and all that jazz. So I used to write like that. Kundan used to get and say, it's not there still, not there still. I never understood because I thought it's all there. Like the typical confidence of writers. So Kundan told me a lesson which I don't know if he remembers now. He said to me casually one day, he said, yeah, you write your whole plot draft. Okay? The story as you want it. He said, that's one version. He said, now forget your story. Forget what has happened in the story. Approach the story, you become the character. Okay? Now you are this character. You are this guy to whom the story is happening. Now you move through the story and you react to the same things which are happening in the initial part of the story. See the journey that this character takes based on what happens to him if this was a real guy. He says, okay. He says, now what will happen is on one level, the first thing you wrote is an inorganic version of a script. It's going this way, it's the plot. When you follow the character, you might find your characters going in this way. He said the day both of these go in the same line, that's the day you've got a good film. He used to call it organic, inorganic. I thought that was a superbly valuable lesson. I'm still trying to learn from it. Then when I worked with BP, the second most important lesson that I ever got is BP used to talk about boiling the scene. I used to say, yaar, ye kya hai? Boiling the scene kya hota hai? It's almost actually writing the scene as an analogy to milk. You're heating milk for chai, pre-microwave days. You've taken a patila on a gas and you put it. You have to go to at one point, it's brimming, but it's not overflowing, but it's brimming as much as possible. If you do it too much, it's just flat. If you do it too much, it flows over. To hit that right point where the scene is brimming, that's boiling the scene. Taking the scene to its maximum dramatic potential. I think most of us, we don't see like when you look at the earlier films, whether you're taking any of the great directors, Raj Kapoor, Vijay Anand, all the directors who we grew up on, they knew how to extract the maximum drama from a scene. You take a film like Jewel Thief, the scene where in a party, Devanand is there and one woman walks up to him and she says, I'm your fiancé. And he says, no. And then her brother lands up, Ashok Kumar. He says, of course you're her fiancé. And this is a very crucial, important scene. Just see it again if you've forgotten it. I won't narrate the whole scene to you now. That scene is drama. It's taking small things and making a good, on paper, it's this much. It gets better and better and better. Even today, anybody can rewrite that scene. You cannot go higher than how Mr. Vijay Anand took it. That's great writing. If you've got 60, 80, 100 great scenes like that, you've got a great film. I was a pretty successful television writer, meaning I wrote 600-700 episodes of Art and CID and stuff like that. I really enjoyed that process because as a storyteller, you've got hundreds of things going on in your head. And this way, it helped me get all that stuff out and immediately get a reaction. You write today, a week later you shoot, a week later you've got your ratings. And they didn't like it, they liked this. So it trained me a hell of a lot on that. But there's always a fear of burnout. Like I told you, even when I was in journalism, I was going through a certain phase. At one point, I had this notion that, 2 saal baad, I might not have this might not be there. Like, you've come with your cricket bat, but there's no field to play anymore. So similarly in television, after 600-700 episodes, see, for the first few years I wrote myself. Every time I used to get stuck and burn out and get tired, Sriram used to come in. Then Rajat, who was a friend of mine, we got in, I kind of trained him into the initial part, and he was able to kind of handle it independently. He became a co-writer, then he started handling stuff independently. Gradually I started realizing that I was finding it tiring. The stress of television writing. I was writing 2 shows, CID and Art at the same time. That means I was writing, a lot of time. 20, 22-hour days were typical for me. There was another show I wrote, which was actually a project I loved. It didn't do that well, called Achanak, which only ran for 26. I wrote only 26, then Rajat took over and completed the thing. So I started thinking that maybe I'm going to burn out if I continue like this. Beach mein I'd be meeting people in the film business, but they had a very different style of working to how I worked. I'm very disciplined in my approach to writing. So indiscipline is something which I didn't quite know how to deal with. So I'd be called by somebody to do something, but meetings you keep talking, and I'm thinking, I should be home writing, I have a delivery of a script. So all this was going on. Then Anjum introduced me to Mr. Santoshi and Milan Luthria. In fact, he had worked with Milan on Kachidage, and Raji, I forgot which film he had worked on at that point when I met him. Must have been Pukar, or was it pre-Pukar, I can't quite remember. Anjum has always been very good with me, in the sense he is my mentor. I always maintain that, because he gave me opportunities which I could capitalize on. So that was very important for me at that stage of my career. So I had met Mr. Santoshi, I had met Milan, we were chatting about various things. And in the late 90s, in fact, Mr. Santoshi was doing a film called Rashk. So I had come in, we had met briefly, discussed. Then there was another subject. He's a wonderful guy to learn from. So I spent a few months here and there training with him, working with him, whatever, but didn't really gel. Then many years later, in 2002, I think, he called me because I think the real reason was Mr. Boni Kapoor was looking to create a television show with Miss Sridevi. So I was, a senior TV guy. So Raji just felt that you can at least talk to them about the business, the process and stuff like that. So I just came in as a friend or an associate or somebody who knows the world to kind of talk about it. That's how we met again after 3-4 years. So we were chatting at his place over dinner, and I asked him, what are you doing? And he said, I'm doing a cop film. And he was working on something. And so I said, that'd be interesting. Let's talk about it. Because I said, while writing CID, what happens is I'd spent, and before that I was a journalist who also wrote about crime. So I really have spent a lot of time with cops and researched a lot of stuff. So one knew that world a little bit, even during CID and stuff like that. So we were chatting, and in the course of it, we started talking about characterization, and I just happened to mention, I must have had a couple of drinks or something. So I was just telling him, I was trying to set off a really low budget film, which I thought I'll do it myself. Or I was trying to convince somebody else to do it. Sriram, but I didn't think Sriram was interested in it at that point, and I think I spoke to Anurag Basu also maybe. But this is an idea and something I'd written which nobody really was very interested in. And that was just about a train journey, about a group of cops. And what happens in the course of that train journey and stuff. And there were 1 or 2 other variations of the story. So we were just chatting about these 4 guys, different characters, different kinds of cops. One, an older guy who's on the verge of, anyway, I won't go into details on that. He liked it. So and I said, it's a very small film I've written. It's like a road journey between 2 stations, 8-10 hours of a journey where a group of guys are taking one person and what happens to them alongside it. And he said, this could be interesting, and why don't we rework this and play with it? And I said, how? What? I didn't quite understand. Finally in my head it was a small film. And then he said, no, what if we do this, and Mr. Bachchan is playing this, and Ajay is playing this, and Akshay is playing, and suddenly, wow. The scales became bigger. So, and it actually happened. So he liked the story I had written, and then we sat and reworked it and made it into a much bigger film, and that was actually Khaki. So technically I became a film writer. Before that also I was still writing. Even when I was on television, I kept writing stuff with Sriram, for Sriram, with him. Films we thought would be interesting to write. I remember one point I was so frustrated, I even wrote a Marathi film called Psycho Baiko, I said, yeah, chal kuch to, I'll get this made in Marathi, because I'll go to Pune and get this done. So all of us write here. You sit and you're sitting alone and you sit and write one story. So then I said, nahi yaar, we'll write a film called Ladies Hostel. The story kya yaar, mujhe pata nahi, lekin Ladies Hostel, log to aayenge, even the producer say yaar, I want to hear this story. So aise time pass mein we used to keep writing, I used to keep writing stupid stories. But seriously, the one I was writing was this story of khaki. And in the original version, I think they were taking a guy to a pilgrimage center for another reason. Because I remember my tagline, which I had written there, was, for one man it was a pilgrimage, for the others it was a war. And I think this is what Raj liked actually. So he said, tell me more about it. And anyway, that's how I became a so-called film writer. Nuances of crafting a thriller. Okay, look, I come from, I'm 42. I'm not exactly from Jurassic Park. But I come from a time where we didn't really have access to stuff like, all the books which you see in stores today. There are like thousands of books on screenwriting. Every time I go in, I see a few more. I learned it from the movies. See, what happens is, why we writers in the first place, and film writers, I used to go to I lived in Pune, next to Apollo Talkies. Okay? Apollo had a fantastic culture. They have the morning show, which is at 8:45, which shows old films, Badla, Dharma, and poster, Pran and Evo and stuff like that. Afternoon show hai, which is the more recent, but a film which is not like, okay, completely made it, maybe, but it's a decently well done film. So you'd see a Tapasya, Shraddhanjali, and main show to hota hi hai. Whether it's a Mithun film or a Mr. Bachchan film, whatever, all these were there. I used to go there day in, day out and just watch, and somewhere this is what you want to do. So you automatically see, if you watch enough Vijay Anand films, if you watch enough Ramesh Sippy films, if you watch Dulal Guha films, if you watch Bridge films, if you watch, I can go on and on. Those are the main textbooks right out there, At that time, funnily enough, we had to we used to look at on Wednesday and wonder which poster will come on the screen. Some might remember because he's also from Pune. Kya? And Alankar was even deadlier. Alankar was on the other side. I was actually born between Alankar and Apollo Talkies. Yahan par Hindi movies, yahan par English. Alankar mein morning show used to be very Eagles Day, Guns of Navarone. So yaar, when you see this, I don't know, I just love thrillers. Plus I used to read a hell of a lot, I still do. I think I read almost a book a day, in spite of the fact that, it's impossible to keep pace with things. Alistair MacLean, James Hadley Chase. I'm a great fan of pulp writing, Dashiell Hammett, Conor Woolridge. So I suppose the thrillers were just something I was attracted to. Where did I learn the craft? I don't know if I have any craft yet. I'm sure you'll find a lot of people who say, "Yaar, kya craft? This guy knows no craft." But the little craft that I know, I think I pretty much got from watching most of these films. Even today, when I'm stuck writing a script, I'll just put on some of my favorite films by, say, Mr. Vijay Anand. I'll watch Jewel Thief again. I'll watch Johnny Mera Naam again. I'll watch, like a Dulal Guha film. I'll watch, and you'll see how did he tackle a moment like this. Yeah, this is how he got it. How would he do this? And somehow you get out of it. No. Like I told you, the whole phase was, I felt at one point in television, can I come up with the same quality of stories, quality by my standard of qualities, in the sense you might not think they're quality at all, but what I'm trying to aspire and reach to, can I come up to that on a consistent level? No, I was finding it tiring, and I also wanted to try writing stories which didn't get over in 30 minutes and 45 minutes. I wanted to tell longer stories. So that's why I shifted. I remember for a long time, almost for a year and a half, even while I was doing Khaki, I was actually still writing television. But I'll tell you what, a typical day in our television used to be like this, ki Sham ko Mr. Singh would call me. I have no idea half of this is coming on this thing, but anyway, these are all, he'll call me and say, "Yeah, Sridhar, superb news, we've got dates of this deadly guy, some sportsman." I'd say, "Badhiya sir, very good, superb. So we'll do an episode." It's great. I'd love to hear what you're doing with them. He says, and we're shooting tomorrow. I say, damn good, yeah. Where? Apna Royal Palms pe. I say, superb. Yeah, could be story hai. I'll say, what? It's 8 o'clock in the evening. I say, chal, come on, we've got this, but kuch kar. So I used to like, chalo bhai. I used to get a bottle of Old Monk. I used to open it, and most people drink and fall asleep. I get wide awake, and I used to drink and I used to write, drink and I used to write. I used to manage to finish. 5, 6 I'd finish. I'd reach there, and Singh Saab would say, very good dialogues. Yeah, he's a great dialogue writer. This at a certain age becomes very hard. So I was saying, mere se ye roz hoga nahi. So at one point I was doing Khaki and doing this. I literally was sleeping half an hour, 1 hour a day. And I was very, very tired, very, very finding it stressful. Plus you have to travel and see, moment TV is a commitment. You cannot screw around television. If you have a delivery date, there are hundreds of people in line waiting for you to deliver on a certain date. This inspiration aayega and all that, I was going to give a gali, but I won't. All that jazz doesn't work in television. There was one aspect of luck in my life which I'm really thrilled about. On one level, it's the fact that I come from a family of readers. So I had access to all the books that my brothers and my father would read. Pulp, real good pulp. And so a lot of storytelling was there. But another part of it was, see, my brother was part of the FDI, SHRIDHAR. And his batch was one of the great batches as far as I'm concerned. If you look at that batch, I mean, these were some of the students. Sriram is there, Raju Hirani is there. There was this year's National Award winner for screenplay for Shala is Avinash Deshpande. Sorry, I have a stammer. Bishwadeep Chatterjee, who later became huge in sound. I can just go one after the other. Everybody in that batch was a certain. No, this was actually a peer group to some extent for me because I was a younger guy and I got to hang out with these guys, listening to them talk. So they're talking about right from Kurosawa to Ghatak to the best of international world cinema. Okay, so I'm getting exposed to that to a certain extent. The conversations that they're having, the discussions that they're having, and when I get out of that conversation, I'm finally going back to my Alankar and I'm going to my Apollo talkies and I'm getting to see Badla, I'm getting to see Kalya, I'm getting to see. So yaar, ye jo contrast hai na, at the age of say 14, 15, I was suddenly exposed to. It's like in Scarface, he says that the world is yours. So the world was mine. In terms of books and films, I got to know a lot about stuff. Plus, my father was a botanist. So briefly for 3 years or so, he was posted to Kew Gardens in London. So all that is separate. But television in London was superb. In the evenings, you had like a lot of reruns of classic stuff, you know, Orson Welles and all this stuff. Where can you get access to this stuff today? I mean, today you can, but otherwise it was very hard. So I got to see a lot of great storytelling, Hitchcock, stuff which didn't come on the screens anymore. You couldn't go to Apollo and buy a ticket for North by Northwest. I mean, I couldn't. Or Psycho, or you know, any one of these things, Birds. But yeah, you could kind of on TV in London see this. So for those 2-3 years, that also helped to a great degree. All these influences helped to a great degree in shaping up the background in terms of giving me stuff I had read, stuff I had watched. I have this sheer belief that the writing process is like an ecosystem. It's like, you know, they say that I don't know, एक अजीब example देता हूँ, but it's equivalent to 100 kilos. I'm giving you a very almost like a business kind of like जो दुकान होते हैं ना, like that kind of a thing. 100 kilos of material that you imbibe, ना? Whether it's through books. I mean, Radhi ke dukaan se books you've picked up, old VHSs, films you've seen, will finally peter down, and it will come out as 1 gram of a great idea in your head. You know? And if you don't go through that 100 kilos, you will not get that 1 gram. The problem which happened many years later was 1 kilo became 1 kilo. ये DVD देखा, ये DVD निकला. तो यार ये तो थोड़ा मतलब अजीब हो गया. You know? But तब क्या होता कि it's all in your head. What do? The head is like neurons and synaptical connections madly connecting. All writing, all art, all creativity is so-called lateral thinking. So you're taking in thousands and thousands of things which you heard and read and seen and felt and imbibed, mixing it up with something like, so for me, when I was going through a crisis in school, in my head, do you know what I'm saying? Katra Sonku, 400 blows. And I'm thinking, yeah, I felt like that. That was a great, I was able to identify with something Truffaut had done. I wasn't, you know, it gave me a higher level to aspire to and a higher level to fall from. So it's like, this helped. I mean, all these things helped. I'm currently trying to do something which falls into the romantic comedy space. I'm not very good at it. It doesn't naturally come to me. Let me put it this way in the sense that, see, I see a certain kind of film. I see A Jab We Met. I love it. I love it. I see so many films. I love it. When I try to do that, I don't necessarily have the tools or the abilities to be able to do that, or the feelings to be able to create that maybe. I keep trying. I'd love to be able to write what I consider a real romance or a real humor sort of thing. I mean, I love stuff like Woody Allen, I love Kishore Kumar. I mean, so many crazy things, but maybe I'm not as talented as the things I'm trying to aspire to. Whereas in the back of my mind, I feel, yeah, I can. In the thriller genre, I can do a better job than most people. So that's it. If you ask me about my specific strengths and weaknesses, I'm good at plot. I'm very good at plot. I find plotting relatively easier. Maybe it's got to do with my 10 years of television training when I did television, I didn't write daily soap, so aajkal the stuff which is going on. I used to write thrillers which ended in 45 minutes. I wish I was stronger in character. That's something I'm working on. Yahan thoda kami hai. It's like on a report card you know ki chalo plot mein you've got 83%. Yahan par 43%. You passed. Lekin you can still go high. You know, so koshish jari hai. Chalta hai. See, this again I'm going to go on a slight tangent because this is a very important question. I mean, most of the younger writers I meet, they get really confused on this. First and foremost, the one thing which nobody is teaching and which needs to be taught is how to recognize a good idea. Okay? See, every idea has a life. Okay? But the life might be a great poem. It might be a great anecdote. It might be a great short story. It might be a great book. It might be a great idea for a one-off TV episode. It might be a great idea for a series. It might be a feature film. And it might be a shit idea. You know, it might be one of those stupid things that come in the middle of the night and then you forget about it. So what happens is, when you choose that idea, you're actually investing in something. It's the equivalent of, yeah, whatever money you've got, whatever money you've made, you're going and putting it on a teen pati ka game is going on. And there are multiple ideas there in front of you. And you're saying, yes, idea pe main paise laga raha hu. And you're going to proceed for the next 1 year, 1.5 years on that. How do you know it's a good idea? 90% of the time when I meet younger writers, I feel terrible because they've chosen the wrong story to tell. And they don't even realize it because they're very passionate about it. See, what happens is we all write stuff we're passionate about. But if you're a writer, the first thing you come from is, I have hundreds of ideas. There are 50 things I want to do, 1,000 things I want to do. If this one doesn't work, some idea might not be ready to be developed because you might not have the experience or the life or the research or the knowledge or the ability or the talent to explore it. You know, you might have a great idea which you're just incapable of developing because you have to marry the right idea to the right thing. So my first thing was choose the right idea. I'm pretty good at choosing the right idea. Because I've done television again. So the moment I think of an idea, I automatically know, yaar, ye to acha CID type episode. Iska life is only half an hour, 40 minutes. Ye yaar, actually will make a lovely short story, lekin nobody will buy it. This is after 5 drinks to tell a friend. Lekin iska koi life hai nahi. Ye bundle hai, ye bundle hai, ye bundle hai. Yaar, isme feature ban sakta hai. This is the first stage. At any moment in time, I'm working on actually 10 to 15 things, which are ideas in a state of flux. You know, an idea is like a seed. You don't quite know which seed will actually germinate and sprout into a tree or which is a weed and which will actually become something else. So once you've chosen the right idea, you invest in it. Now you try and take it to the next level, which is a story. Again, because of my television background, it's very important for me to know where's the story going, even before I commit a word onto paper. I keep notebooks with me all the time. Nowadays I use an iPad, but I use it like an electronic notebook. In the sense I'm constantly jotting down ideas, notes. There's a certain mathematical point here when everything kind of, something clicks. Two strangers, two ideas which never should have met, meet in your head and they seem to form a story. So I take this idea and I try and see what is the beginning, middle, end of the story. Somebody would call it Act 1, Act 2, Act 3. Somebody would call it structure. I don't know. I go down to the basic thing that if I'm talking to a child of around 10 or 12, and I'm telling him, yeah, I want to tell you the story. Because I was a child of 10 or 12 when I watched all the movies I loved. If you can't tell me the story of Kalya, then either you know, it's important to be that you can tell that story. So I said, what is the story about? What is the promise of this story? What is the potential of this story? The idea is so great. What do you expect to see from this idea? And I try and put down all the possible variations, I keep free writing. I just keep writing, putting down notes. I don't look for, nobody else is going to see this. This is for my eyes only. So in my notebooks, I've got some 100 notebooks filled with just random, you know, it's like a lunatic scribbling, you know. Like in Yarada, you caught one guy and you found his notes. Us type ke scribblings hai. And at some point, something clicks. You find, okay, this is a good potential story. You might find at this level that this idea doesn't develop into a very good story, or it develops into a cliched story, or it develops into a story always told. Okay? I put down that stuff. I've got a broad story in place. Normally when I've got this thing, I like to know what have others who've come in this genre done before me. Anybody, everybody. So if I get to know that I'm working on this kind of a thing and, oh shit, yeah, Vijayanand had done a similar thing in this territory. Let me see what he did. Let me see what this guy did. There were 50 post-it notes. So I will imbibe all the things which have been done in that particular thing If I find that, oh shit, this thing which I want to do is already done, I'll actually dump it. Because there are 50 other things you want to do. But then you realize, wow, he painted himself into a corner and he got out this way. And I don't know, it starts making your mind open. Once you know that this thing, then your idea might require research. By research, I do not mean watching films or reading books. That's one aspect of it. Today, it means going on Google. Back 15 years ago, what it meant was, if you're writing a cop story, you go and meet cops. I'm a journalist. I was a journalist. So I'd go and hang out with cops, I'd go and spend time with them, and everybody has a tale that they want to tell, and they really want to tell you. I mean, in the middle of the Bombay riots, I've sat and I've had story discussions with cops about their life and what's going through, because they just want to talk. Everybody wants to talk. If somebody came today and met you and showed a genuine interest in what you were saying, and they were passionate about it, you would also open up and maybe reveal something which might be the key to your character. You know, it might not come in the first few things you say. It might come in the subtext of what you're saying. So this kind of research is very important. You need to either research it, to live it. Some way you need to understand the material you're playing with. If it's a subject which needs research. I mean, there are some subjects which don't need research. I mean, I won't even go into examples of that because this thing. After that, I do something called an outline. I like to work on an outline level where I just break that down into scenes and see, does this hold? Each scene has to be very dramatic. It has to be an independent unit, which is great. If you can remove the scene and the story still works, that scene wasn't required in the first place. You try and get what they call it a one-line order. I remember at every stage, none of this is being shown to anybody. हम क्या करते हैं ना, यार solid idea है yesterday यार. And चार लोग दारू पी रहे हैं, ये idea बता दिया. And somebody says, हाँ यार, लेकिन वो उस type का वो देखा, उतना मजा नहीं आ रहा है. Then कल you don't feel the same motivation. बात मत करो बे, लिखो. You know, all your khunnas, anxiety, fears, this thing, put it down on paper. So I do this one-liner. I develop it now into a more detailed thing which is called a treatment, where without the dialogue stage, it's fleshed out. I'm getting a sense, does this work? Does this hold? How is this moving? Then I write a screenplay. आजकल तो final draft, ये सब बहुत सारे softwares हैं. Frankly, if you want to write, you can use Word. There are free softwares like Celtics. Use what it takes. Use longhand. But you write your first script. My first 3-4 scripts I wrote by longhand completely. I didn't have a computer at that point also. But now you've got the whole thing there. Now you're in a shape. Your first draft is not this draft. Many people confuse this for your first draft. Your first draft is where you put it all out there. See, what happens is all the stuff in your head, good, bad and ugly, you just get it out, write it, let it all come there, let it be there in front of you. It might be a shit draft. It might have 100% of weaknesses. It might have crazy issues. But the important part is it's not in your head anymore, it's out there. Now, the writing begins, the rewriting. Now you look at it, because even the worst piece of writing you've done will have at least one good scene. Maybe 5 good scenes, if you're lucky, 10 good scenes. That is the nucleus on which you build. And you start saying, okay, this is bad, this is bad, this is bad, but this is good. This is genuinely good. And now you build up on it, build up on it, build up on it, build up on it. Then if you're lucky, once you finished 3-4 drafts of this process, now you write first draft. And now you go out into the market and show it to people. Ideally, I have one stage I do before that, but that's because I have friends I trust. I like to show whatever I write first to people who I trust. There will be a cross section of people. There will be, say, maybe a cameraman, there will be an editing student, there will be a direction guy, there will be somebody who's a writer also, there will be a student, there will be somebody who's not related but loves watching movies. But 6-7 people I trust in the level that they won't go around discussing this with other people, and they understand that this is a very sensitive time for me. So the criticism is, it can be harsh, but it should be constructive criticism. Not just a gali, not reading, you know. So their feedback really helps you. You get a point of view on your script from various people. Now you polish it, make the thing, and you go out and you try and pitch it to people. This is when I try and pitch to people. There's one other thing that I do before I pitch to people, which somebody might find funny. In fact, I do it even before the writing process. Once I get an idea which is interesting and I've got a broad idea of a story, I like to draw the poster of the thing. I like to imagine what's the poster of a film like this. I have, like I told you, I have a background in drawing. Even if I don't draw it directly, at least I know my compositions very well, and I have friends who maybe draw. And so if I'm not talented enough to get that on paper, somebody else can. And I like to write a promo. These are not for showing anybody. But I'm trying to write the 45-second trailer of this film. That, is it a film I want to watch? That's the first thing. If I feel, हाँ यार इसमें वो है, दम है, Then I go around writing this whole process. So every idea I get, I actually try and see कि इसका trailer क्या होगा यार, इसका मतलब poster क्या है. And अगर मुझे लगा कि अरे यार अगर ये अलंकार में होता तो I would immediately rush and go and see this. I would bunk school because most of my film viewing was bunking school. Is this good enough to get caned the next day? Is this good enough to get your ears pulled? Is this good enough to have your dad sit down and give you a lecture? Yes, it's good enough. So if it's a film which satisfies that criteria for me, I'm safe. I go ahead and do it. I think it's an exercise people should try. Try writing trailers for your films. It's just a good exercise. It's fun.
And
then I meet people. Many people think, "Arey yaar, aap to you must be getting..." No. The same process which I had when I was 20, I'm 42 today, okay? I still write a script. I still call people. I don't know anybody. I have one, two friends who are producers now because I worked with them. Say, Rohan is a friend of mine and he's a producer. Mr. Prakash Jha is there. Mr. Santoshi is there. So there are people who might give me 25% more credit. If I call them up and say, कि भाई एक script लिखा है मैंने, they'll say, चलो भाई ठीक है आ जाओ, दिखा दो. But otherwise I don't know, कि I can't set up a project. I do the same thing which anybody else does. I meet so many guys who write to me on Twitter and stuff and say, how do we break in and do this? You break in the hard way. You write a script and you call the people you think are the right people to make that film. And you hope to God one of them takes your call. And once they take your call, you hope to God that you have something good enough to tell them. And you hope to God that you don't stammer and stutter and screw yourself up completely and sweat and this thing. And if everything goes right, maybe a film gets made. But at any point in time, I mean, I have at least 6 scripts or 7 scripts that have not got made, which I've spent maybe 9 years of my life on cumulatively. Okay, if I look at the time I spent totally. Today, out of them, maybe 2 of them should have been made, and 2 of them I still will get made someday when I find the right person to make it with. Finding after this, the most important part, again equally important, it's like a marriage. You need to marry the right script to the right director. It's very, very important, because otherwise, somebody's strength might be something else, your strength might be something else. And then once you've delivered the draft, and if it's going to get made, a whole process begins. You are just the first part of a very long process. Okay? It's like dominoes. Everything has to go tuck, 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 tuck in place. You have to get the right unit, the right cameraman, the right sound guy, the right actors, everybody who vibes completely with us, right down to the editor. So this rarely happens. It's so, you remember those games we used to have as kids? You won't remember, but sir will remember. कि एक छोटा सा ball bearing type होता था. And there's like this little plastic thing. आपका script है वो ball bearing है. And इतने सारे mazes हैं. यहाँ पर obstacle है, यहाँ पर obstacle है, यहाँ पर obstacle है, यहाँ पर obstacle है. आपको किसी भी तरह से घुमा के मतलब you have to get it to the other side. Okay? And that journey, all the people you meet, all the obstacles you meet, will change you, move you, shift you, push you. This thing, that's part of the writing process. I always firmly maintain that, I mean, writers told me, this is a brown script and we will not. In fact, in your own institute I'd come, I think the previous batch, and they were like outraged at the idea that somebody will change their words. It's teamwork. They will change their words. They will interpret it. Ideally, a writer should be on set, or a writer should be in on the edit. A writer should be in every part of it. In the editing, I sit on the edit all the time because I know this is where the last draft is written. That guy can write final draft of the script was locked today because he sat and recut the film. Yeah, I want to be there. I'm the first writer. He's the last writer. In the middle, there was 1, 2 other writers. So when a film does well, a smart writer knows that magic happened and there were 25 things which went right. And when a film does badly, we also know that all these things happen. Once you go through this whole process, magic has to happen. Magic rarely happens. And when it happens, it's great. You watch Raju Hirani's work. Supremely talented, supreme this thing, taken, and he takes it every part of the route and magic happens. He's got a wonderful unit around him. See, nobody sets out to make a bad film. There's a contempt or this thing or a belief people have. Ki, nahi, aisa kabhi nahi hai. Every guy out there, whether it's a writer or an editor or a cameraman or whatever, everybody, the director, obviously, the actor, everybody wants to make the next Sholay. They want to make the next Jewel Thief, the next, that's what we want to do. But kya hota hai to get through this process? There are so many variables. So it's magic when it happens right. And you need a really strong team leader. The marriage of the right script or the right writer with the right director is very, very important. It happens to me a lot. I get offered a film and I say no. And they think, oh, guys being egoistic or guys being something. No, it's something as basic as I don't think I can be my best in this. I don't think I can do what you need to get done. I don't have it like you come to me with a great romance idea. Say Sadma, okay? You come. I like Sadma. I see it in the theater. I'm like, yaar, maza aaya. I can't write it necessarily. So I just truthfully tell him, मेरे भाई, I'm not the right guy for this. ये अपना एक बंदा है, मेरा दोस्त है, and he'll be superb. They think, who does he think he is? He doesn't think anything of himself. It's just that, you have to marry the right thing to the right person. That's it.
Writers, I believe, are sometimes do a lot of rewriting because an actor doesn't like a dialogue, actor doesn't like a scene.
Sir, but let me put it this way, sir. If we can't convince one man out there, how do we expect to convince 10,000 people out there? See, I don't come from the belief that a writer is God and हमने लिखा है तो यार मतलब ऐसे ही करो. वो थोड़ा चलो यार plays लिखते हैं, short stories लिखते हैं, poetry लिखते हैं. I have entered a thing for teamwork. Not only that, this is going to be viewed by so many people. Everybody there has an opinion. Like, I'm actually the kind of writer who, sir, when I narrate, I normally before I finish a script, right from my TV days. This is something I used to do. I do two things which are very important for my writing process. One is when I finish a script, I do a reading to the entire unit. It's very important to me. And there nobody is wearing any hat. There nobody is senior and junior and stuff like that. कि भैया ये मेरा story है, मैं सुना रहा हूँ. Everybody's got a different perspective. One guy might say, yaar, aisa mat karo, maza nahi aa raha hai. One guy might say something, but they're all potential audiences also. So I take in all that feedback. I have the intelligence to disregard feedback which I don't find useful. But sometimes great ideas come from somewhere. Sometimes great rejections come from somewhere. Things you don't need to do. Once the thing is done, which unfortunately I don't manage to do in film anymore. I would like to do it again. In television I should do it. We should do a post-mortem of the thing after it came out. Ki what went wrong or what went right. This episode got a lot of ratings. Kyun? Was it because, that scene was damn good? Was it because of some other this thing? Was it because you directed this superbly? Was it because this kind of stories? Who is the profile? Who liked this more? And luckily in television, there's one great advantage. They had the system where they're actually checking from various areas, different age groups, demographics. It is so useful for a writer, I cannot tell you. Ki bhaiya, aapne kuch likha hai. And you get to know that children didn't like it, but women liked it, but the men came and sat because of their wives and shadowed it. But if you do it again 2 times, they won't come. No, it's like a damn interesting exercise here. Rose I'm getting to know, like yaar, actor ka ego hota hai. He goes to mirror and says, how do I look? Ye mera ego hai. Ki ye banda samne se mujhe bataya ki, sir, aapka story bundle hai. I can shout from the rooftops ki maine show, ki I've written Sholay. Lekin yaar, agar it's not showing in the TV ka figures, I've not written Sholay. Na? I've written Aandhi Tufan instead. Sorry, that's a reference you won't get. But they're both variations of the same story. So, Sholay और आंधी तूफान में एक thin line है. हम लोग उस line पे हम लोग एक like tightrope walkers we are walking. We can fall this side or that side. Like डर का opening ना, शाहरुख is walking. यहाँ गिरो तो it's your terrace. वहाँ गिरो तो चलो मेरे भाई, goodbye. Sir, ego तो सबका होता है. I narrate to directors, I narrate to actors. I haven't specifically found that there's been any issue with actors thing, and I don't know, sir. Maybe I've just been very lucky. Utna problem hua nahi hai as far as I'm concerned. In fact, I get damn pleased. I like to be there for rehearsals when the actors are going through their lines, because I like to change the lines when the actors are talking. Because sometimes what happens is, sir, we are sitting in a room alone. यहाँ पे एक old monk का बोतल है, and आप 3 drink पी के ये लगा, and in your head you are listening to Devanand. ऐसे बोलेंगे, and then you realize, यार, Dev Sahib is not there anymore, and now it's going to be done like this. How is the scene actually going to sound? And the actor has a different rhythm of his own, a different graph of his own. And then you realize, I have to change this, I have to change this. So you change. It's great fun. Many people think I'm an idiot, or many people think I'm maybe interfering. I like to be there throughout the process, unless the director specifically tells me, don't come. For me, the writing job begins from the idea that I wrote. It ends in the edit. When we have either done the postmortem and buried the poor guy, कि ये picture तो यार मतलब क्योंकि पता चलता है, we're not fools. कि 6 months before the film releases, you get to know mentally कि where are you standing, what are your weak points. We are also audiences. Na? Finally, we are that 8-year-old guy who watched the film in the theatre. Yeah. How is it possible that 2 years you work in something and one 14-year-old guy who's bunked school is sitting there and within 10 minutes he can tell somebody, hey, dabba film hai. Kyun? Yeah, children, in my time, people used to throw coins. Actually, used to throw coins. So all this stuff used to happen. So we are that guy. There's a lovely story about. Sorry, I'm digressing again. But it's a good story.